Morning. Do not be like this panelist I saw at a conference in Austin and had the most embarrassing moment on stage. I feel for them. I didn't want to be them. I was embarrassed for them. Don't be like that panelist. We're going to cover this today on how people are using social media. We're going to cover how to use social media in a better way. We don't want you to just produce social media. We don't necessarily just want you to consume social media. We want you to maximize social media for your small business. Listen, in the recent years, in recent months, I've been learning and focusing on what's going on with marketing. I challenged myself about a year ago that as I help small business owners, as I help people trying to find freedom, as I help people trying to find success, trying to find financial freedom, time freedom, location freedom, I committed and I just accepted the fact that at some point we're going to have to learn a ton about marketing. So I dove into the marketing world. And I started learning as much as I could about marketing, and I found so little of it actually works for the average small business person. The average small business person is actually struggling with, say, for example, paid ads, because you have to have such a high organizational level and a high budget to actually figure out what's going on with paid ads. It takes a lot of focus. And then organic content, a lot of small business owners don't want to be on camera. A lot of small business owners don't want to post on Instagram. They think that's not for them. They think their audience isn't there. They assume that they've always been making money with word of mouth. I've seen so much of these little things affect small business owners that I grew greatly concerned that small business owners who are not focused on marketing are going to lose. And I felt for them, and I don't want that to be your fate. You are pursuing freedom. You are pursuing financial freedom. You are pursuing location freedom. You want more for your business, more for your family. I believe if that is true, you have to understand marketing. You have to understand the dynamics of why people buy from you, why people would even consider consuming your product. And to that end, it led me into looking more and more partnering with Nicole at HotMod and learning about influencer marketing, because I have learned that I believe content marketing, content creators, and influencers will be the marketers by the end of this year. If you actually look at the ad spend, influencer marketing is taking off. So what can you do and what can you learn from what's going on from this embarrassing panelist and how they embarrassed themselves? Absolutely. In a panel in Austin that I saw, what you can learn from that and how you cannot be guilty of the same thing, how you can maximize the use of social media, not only for yourself, but your small business. That's what we're covering today. But before we do any of that, you know that with Spark Show number 305, we've done 305 episodes of the Spark Show. We start with Morning Cup of Gratitude. In the comments, I want to hear from you. I already got some comments here. I want to hear from you. Nate Waters says, "What's up, buddy? How's it going, Nate? I hope you're doing fantastic." I want you to start with your comments. I don't care if you're watching this later in the afternoon. I don't care if you're watching it now. Take this moment right now to drop in the comments what you're grateful for. It doesn't even necessarily matter for the show today. It matters for you that you have an eye for gratitude, that you can see. I had a situation yesterday where I was at Sun and Fun, and I had media passes, which gave me free parking, gave me special parking where I was closer to the event, and I could get right in. It ended up taking me nearly an hour, and I was so frustrated. But my partner, Nicole, turned to me and said, "Hey, what are we grateful for?" And we just went through gratitude moments, and you're like, okay, and it grounded me. This morning in the comments, I want to hear what you're grateful for. If this is the only moment this week you have a moment to express yourself on what you're grateful for, please post in the comments before. And as usual, I'll start with mine. I am grateful for the progress we're making on the front of marketing for Spark Sites. One of the major things that have gone on is in my partnership with HotMod, we've begun focusing on niches. We've heard forever, in your business, the riches are in the niches. Focus on a niche because you can focus on a problem that they are facing. And so we've been focused on a problem that influencers and content creators are facing. We've been helping them with that, and it has created rapid growth. We've been selling quantity-wise more websites or more what we're calling online media kits, and that's another learning from that I'm grateful for, that when you focus on a niche, you might even provide your same service. You might provide your same product, but you come up with the language that matches their pain. One of the things that influencers are struggling with is their media kits aren't getting through to just to send a PDF. And so And so what we show them is how to do the online media kit and get that in front of people. Nate took me up on the opportunity to share his gratitude. He said he's been up all night doing the hustle. I would love to get there this year, as media is harder to get down there living in Jacksonville. You're going to have to unpack that a little bit for me, Nate. I'd love to get there this year as media. Oh, sun and fun, but it's harder to get down there living in Jacksonville. I hear you. I'm sorry. I hear you. It is harder to get down there, and the media parking lot was full by 9 a.m. I got there when the doors opened, and they turned me away. It turned into a fiasco. But I am grateful that I have people around me that are focused on gratitude. Who around you is focused on gratitude? What are you grateful for? If you cannot start there, your brain is probably growing duller by the day, and you're drifting through the day because you are not seeing the gifts placed in front of you. Let's talk about this embarrassing panelist and what is the modality? Should you be producing content? Should you be consuming content? And why you should be doing neither or focusing on neither, and how to maximize social media for your business. Let's talk about it. So I went to Austin for a conference last year, and it was a phenomenal conference. I had a great time. I met up with a lot of people in my field. And when I had looked at the schedule, there was one particular panelist that I had been following in our space. This was the crypto space, but it's relevant to creators and small business owners, so stick with me real quick. So I went to this conference in New York City. I went to this one panelist, and they started asking the panelist questions about their content, asking questions about the industry, asking questions about nuances of what's going on. And in this case, it was crypto. What's going on in crypto? And the person fell flat. At first, I was wondering, are they drunk? Are they high? They had no answers for any of these questions, really. They kept bringing it back to the project they were trying to hype, and they could talk about the project they were trying to hype. But eventually, the people asking questions were like, well, could you tell us about this post you posted? And he had no real idea about the post, and it was his own post. And he even said, let me pull that up. And he pulled up, and it was a tweet, and he was looking at it, and he fumbled with it, and then he looked like he was trying to explain it, and eventually said, I don't even know what I was trying to say here. And you heard audible gasps in the room because this person had a very strong following in the crypto space. And people in the audience gasped, like, this person doesn't even know what they were tweeting about, and I'm following their tweets. This was the aha moment for many people in the audience. They saw this and they thought, I'm following this person, and they can't even explain their own tweets, let alone general industry concepts. Now, I was in crypto from 2011. I had the Not Crypto Bro show up until late last year, and we were heavily involved. But what I started learning was this is out of control, and there's nothing but hype. So I stepped away as a creator for cryptocurrency. Nate says, yeah, you had to be there by 6:30 a.m. The meeting's at 7 a.m. and then a lot of briefings. I really want to see Buzz Aldrin again this year, but I'm very grateful and thankful for my beautiful wife and kids. Awesome, Nate. Thank you for sharing that. So as I was at this conference, the egg on this person's face that became readily evident is simply this. This person did not know, this panelist did not know their industry or their field. Now, as I've been dabbling with creators, there's a lot of creators. We spend a lot of time with RV creators and travel creators, and they live this life and they're immersed in this life, and that's great. And they can talk about RV life. But what I've begun to, as I've dabbled with all types of creators, not just RV and travel creators, when you start asking them about their own content, when you start inquiring about content creation, you ask them what works, what doesn't work, you start to realize they don't know. And this phenomenon of, as I've come from the web design space, it's very readily evident if someone understands web, internet technologies, and web design at all or not. You simply ask, do you know CSS or HTML? And their answer will reveal very quickly that they do or do not know what they're talking about. But I did not realize it would be this pervasive with influencers and content creators and social media people. This is one of the major reasons I see a lot of small business owners avoiding social media. Now, if you talk to any small business owner, they will typically say they avoid social media because it's a waste of time. They'll avoid posting on social media because it doesn't fit their audience. They're avoiding social media because they're not really sure what to say, which is quite often pretty true. But why don't they know what to say? The truth is maybe they're afraid of the camera, maybe they're not used to speaking in front of the camera, but the real reason that I have discovered, and don't be these people, the real reason that I have discovered most people do not want to be on a camera is they do not want it to be revealed that they don't know their field. Hear me on this. Most people are revealing they do not know what they are talking about as it comes to their field. I've noticed this in all the services that we serve. Once you get into it, now a lot of the service-based industries that are small business and local, they do know how to do what they're doing. But they don't know nuance. They just have a repeatable process. They don't know what's going on in their field, and they're afraid. They don't know what to talk about is the phrase they say, because as you post social media, as you post a video, as you post a reel, I don't know what to talk about because I'm doing the same old thing over here. Now, on one hand, this is very good. They have a repeatable process for their landscaping company, their lawn mowing company, their carpet cleaning company. That's great. But what it also points to is their company will close soon. Why do I know this? Because they're not innovating and they're not improving. They're not learning. They have no fresh ideas, fresh content, no fresh perspective from their own industry. They have a repeatable process, which currently is probably making them good money. But they're talking to me and my people because they're saying things like, I'm not seeing as many leads as I used to. Word of mouth is kind of fading off. Nate Waters says, knowledge is dead without wisdom, and wisdom comes from experience, and experience comes from failure. You're right. People, once you have a repeatable process, people aren't putting themselves out there. So this panelist was doing what a lot of marketers and influencers and small business owners are doing, and that is not getting a depth of knowledge. Now, there's a lot of phrases, as I've been spending more and more time with the creators and the influencers, there's a phrase floating around that you all should be very familiar with, and I'm sure you've heard it, and it's simply this: don't be consumers of social media, be producers. It's great advice. A lot of people are sitting numbing their mind while they're skimming social media. They're doing it for a pseudo entertainment. They're watching it. They're hoping to chuckle a little bit. But even some people who say, oh, no, I'm consuming this information to learn stuff, they're just skipping from one reel to the next. They're not doing any deep learning. They see something and they scroll to the next. There's a shallow learning. They haven't spent any time with it. And they might be able to reference, hey, I think I saw a quick fact over here. They might be able to share that. But when grilled like this panelist was grilled, when being asked for nuance in their field, they're really not gaining that from social media. And this phrase of don't consume social media, produce. It's a decent phrase because then it encourages you, the social media person or the person surveying social media, it encourages you to go back and say, okay, let me get intentional. So then you start looking at social media in order to produce it. So what do you look for? You look for trends. You look for trending audio. You look for trending shticks that people are doing, the memes that they're doing, or the jokes that they're pulling, or the techniques they're doing. You might see some of these trends and you save it to a collection and you go, great, I'm going to do this. And immediately you get to, let's just replicate this. Let's just duplicate this. Let's just copy what they're doing. And you put out this high volume of content. You didn't think about it. You're calling yourself a producer of social media content, but you're really just duplicating what someone else done and you're seeing if it works. You're throwing stuff on the wall and seeing if it works. I'm here to tell you that neither of these modalities actually work. They don't work for your small business. They don't work to put more money in your pocket. They don't work to build your brand of one, whether you're an influencer building your own brand or whether you're a small business owner trying to expand your brand and get people to know your brand more. Being a producer of social media content is nearly as bad. It's only a little bit better than being a consumer of social media content, because what's going on right now is people are realizing that it's a volume game. And I said this in the last Spark Show, put out a volume of content. So they're looking for ways to put out a higher volume of content. They're looking for shortcuts and hacks, which is the exact thing I suggested against in the last Spark Show. But what we're seeing is whether you're a small business owner or a creator, they're putting out a high volume of content, but they're not using any creativity. They're seeing what other people have done. They're trending it. They're duplicating it and pushing it out, and they're not asking any critical questions. And this is basically creating an entire array of low quality, high volume, produced content. And for those listening to this on other platforms, I put that in air quotes because you're producing content, which again is a little bit better than being a consumer of content. But if you're only producing junk and you're not thinking about it critically, you're basically creating social media litter for us to have to filter through. So what can you do? You have this problem of there's too many consumers of social media content. And then what's worse is now that we're producing content, we're producing a lot of junk content. We're using AI to produce content. And then the actual consumers of services, those who are potential buyers, are starting to get numb. So if consuming content's making you numb, producing content in this way is making you dull. It's dulling the knife of your mind. So what can you do? I present for your consideration, there is a better way to interface with social media, either as a creator or as a small business owner or someone just trying to make their way in the world. And this is what I suggest. I suggest that you become an improver of social media content. It's a small shift from being a producer. I don't just want you to be a producer. If you had to choose between being a consumer and a producer of content, I would much rather you be a producer of content. But I want you to take on the paradigm of improvement. When someone says, don't be a consumer, be a producer. When someone says, hey, I produce X amount of reels a day, I want you to actually say, I improve upon content every single day. And here is the paradigm for you, and I want you to take a look at this real quick. I've got a quick acronym for you to listen to. It's called OLD, O-L-D. And the acronym stands for this. Number one, only follow people in your field. Now, there's what you produce and people following you, but there's what you consume as well. And when you go to your feeds, your inspiration is only based on people who might not be in your field. It might be a mother who, maybe you're a father building a business and you have no kid. Maybe you're not a father. Maybe you're just a male, a single male doing a business. You have no kids, but you have a bunch of mom bloggers in your feed and you're seeing those trends and those audio trends. And let's say that you're having the producer mind, so you save that reel and you go to duplicate that reel. Now you're doing content and trends and audio trends that have nothing to do with your audience. You want to follow other people in your field, and not only to mimic them, but to also hear what's going on in your field. You should unfollow nearly anyone who is not in your field or not in the field you want to be in today. So the O in the acronym OLD is to only follow people in your field. Now, this sounds extreme. You might be following 1,000 people and it's your aunt, your uncle, and your cousins. You want to stay in touch with them. You want to know what's going on. Well, if you have efforts that you want to succeed from a marketing perspective, you probably need a separate account. Keep a personal account that follows all those people and toggle between the two. Nicole has 2 separate accounts, one for her business hot mod, the other for her personal life. That's very obvious, but I encourage, no matter what your strategy is, the social media platform that you're going to be producing content from, please unfollow anyone who is not in your field or in the field you're going toward. The second thing, L in the OLD, OLD acronym, is this: learn. Consume to learn. It is okay to consume social media content if you're truly learning. But how you consume it impacts whether or not you're learning. Flicking to the next reel is not learning. Learning is a process by which you do deep work in your mind, rewire your neurons, and then synthesize that information and have a new thought. That is learning. If you're just skimming feeds, you might have a good idea, but you didn't learn. You just put it on a reference, and that's fine, and you duplicate it later and whatever, but that's still shallow content. And shallow content will begin to be filtered out by your potential customers. So, only follow people in your field so that you're actually learning what's going on in the industry, and then also seeing the trends and memes that are working in your industry. If you see someone in your industry do a certain audio trend or a certain type of structure for their content and there's no engagement, don't duplicate it. But if there's a particular piece of content that resonates with the public, you're going to have to ask yourself a few different questions. So for the L in learn, when you consume content, pause on content taking you where you honestly want to go. If it's in your field, listen to the meat of that content. Do you agree with it? And this leads us to the D in our acronym OLD. Only follow people that are in your field. L, learn from this by consuming to learn. It's okay to consume so long as you're learning. But D, I want you to dwell on this content. I do not want you to skim the feeds. I put that in air quotes. I want you to listen to the content and listen to what the speaker is saying. First off, do you agree? I saw a video this morning by Brian, I forget his last name. He's got a lot of momentum right now, and his wife is a gorgeous woman, and she was on the screen very quickly, showing her butt and taking a photo of her butt. And he came on the screen and said, "Don't take photos of your butt." And being a marketer myself, I said, okay, well, let's pay attention to what he's saying here because he's gaining a lot of momentum. There's a lot of engagement on this post. And he had something very important to say: don't take photos of your butt. And I was like, okay, well, that's one thing, because he speaks to fitness influencers, and fitness influencers do want to see figure and physique. So what is he talking about? What I'm doing is dwelling. I'm asking myself critical questions. I'm reflecting on this post from someone who has a ton of engagement, and I'm thinking, I'm not skimming to the next thing. I'm not going to go duplicate this exact same post. I'm going to ask myself some critical questions. How are the engagements? What are the top 10 to 20 comments about? Did he engage or respond to those comments? Do I agree critically or uncritically? Here's the catch when you're just consuming social media content. I believe you should consume to learn. But when you're just consuming social media content, you are receiving what the speakers are saying without critically thinking, which means your unconscious mind is accepting what they're saying. What if you disagree? What if there was a political post that came up in your feed and you just skimmed? Unconsciously, consciously, you might think very briefly and very shallowly in a basically what makes for an alpha brainwave state. You've accepted very shallowly, well, I disagree. But your brain saw you just accept it. You didn't form an argument. You didn't actually stand up for it. Imagine being encountered by a bully in the street and they were picking on someone and you were convicted that if I stood up to this person and I'm not only standing up to this person for them, I'm reinforcing to myself my own character. So am I going to stand up to them or not? And if you keep walking, you have basically disempowered yourself and created a weaker self-character. But if you stand up to this person and say something, you've created a stronger self-character. It is the same with every single social media post that you skim and don't pause on and think critically, do I receive this or not receive this? If you just skim, you have sent a signal to your brain, I accept what this is saying. I know that sounds dramatic, but it is. So when you consume to learn, you consume slower. And then you filter your feed so it doesn't have a bunch of junk. It only has stuff taking you where you're going. So make sure that you only follow people that are in your field or going where you're going or that you respect in your field. Number 2, learn, consume to learn. Learn, consume to learn. And then D, dwell on the posts you're observing. Take time with them and allow yourself to critique them. I don't agree with this post, or I do agree with this post, or I think I'm going to try this post. And only then should you save that post and duplicate it. So this takes you out of this false dichotomy where a lot of people are saying, don't consume content, produce. I actually want you to not just produce content. I do think everyone in this thing, everyone watching the show today, whether you have a small business, whether you're a creator, I do think you need a larger volume of content, but I think you need to, as soon as you get into the repetitions of knowing how to post, knowing how your voice works on screen, knowing kind of your direction and your voice and your message in general, as soon as you do that, which was my post last week, for the last Spark Show, I said you need to just focus on quantity for a period of time. But as soon as reasonably possible, I want you to focus on not just quality, but an improved mindset where you're not just a producer or a consumer, but you are focusing on improving upon content. You're listening to what others in your field are saying. You're saying, hey, I agree with this person because of X, Y, and Z. Hey, what this person's saying is good, but let me add to it. You're adding to the body of knowledge and creating value everywhere everywhere around you. So again, I want to encourage you, if you have not taken your service-based business and started posting on social media, please just start engaging, because if you are a small business and you say things like, I grow with word of mouth, if you have a business at all of any kind and you're saying, we're doing okay, but my referrals are kind of waning, I present for your consideration, you're not focused on A, marketing, and B, content creation. And all that to say, don't be like this very embarrassed panelist where you get on a stage and you have nothing of value to add. Too many of you small business owners, when you do finally get an opportunity to take a panel, or if someone hands you the microphone at a networking event, or as I do, when you get invited to stand on stages to speak, do you actually have anything to say? Have you curated your thinking? Do you know about your industry? Or have you simply been observing from the sidelines, skimming the feeds, dulling your mind, making your mind numb, and not using social media for how powerful it can be? I want you to dwell on that today. I appreciate you so much. Why am I talking about any of this? Because of my mission to ignite lives of explosive significance, I want you to succeed in your content creation. I want you to succeed in expanding your voice into the world. I want you to succeed in your small business, creating financial freedom, time freedom, and location freedom. And so I want you to apply this OLD, only follow people who are in your field. L, learn, basically consume to learn. D, dwell and reflect on the content instead of just accepting it uncritically. But no matter what you do today, I want you to remember the mission, igniting lives of explosive significance, starting with your own. Have a great day.